Oh, we're a little livelier today.
Yeah. We'll definitely find what we're looking for at some point here. Welcome back to Buddy's Booze Banter, Unfiltered Conversations. I am Rick.
And I'm Michael.
We also have, of course, our producer here with us, Alex.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here.
We appreciate y'all joining us, or at least listening to us today. I'm going to try to do a little bit different here, Mike. You know how I typically like to jump into some controversies?
Because that's your personality.
Well, I don't want to say it's my personality, but obviously I like to stir it up a little bit.
Alex, who
Yes.
you agree with, is that his personality?
Man, he loves the poke the bear.
He does.
Well, it gives good, honest debate. But let's kind of go with the feel good thing that you actually brought up the other day.
Oh, I do. I got a good feel good story, and this involves my brother.
Which I love. Pat's awesome.
My brother started, he coaches girls high school softball. And he actually started it later in life. It wasn't something he just started doing. It's just something that his daughter started playing softball, and he got into kind of like helping coaching her or whatever, and then decided he was going to go back, get his degree, and get into coaching.
No, but he got his degree in education, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
Well, I think it's an important point to talk about.
Because you have to be at a school.
Right, but that's important.
That's a high
thing to talk
school.
about. But it's an important thing to talk about because it's not just about the sport aspects of it, but his education as well.
Right. So he had to go back, get his education so he could basically teach or coach in high school. And I mean, he did it later in life. And usually when he finally went back, got his graduation, he then was looking for jobs. Well, typically you do not get a head coaching job your first job out of starting coaching.
Right.
Well,
especially in competitive Texas.
yes. But luckily the stars were aligned or whatever. The school that my two nieces, his two daughters, were going to was Hallsville. They had an opening.
Oh, East Texas.
East Texas.
Okay.
They had an opening for a softball coach, head coach.
And wasn't he living in Marshall at the time or
He was
something?
living at Marshall,
Okay.
but they were moving to they were going to be moving to Hallsville.
Nice.
And so then ultimately he interviewed for it, and he got the job. He got not the assistant. He got the head coaching job, his first job out.
That must have been a great interview.
Yeah, it was, or knowing the right people or whatever.
Yeah.
So his first season, they did not make the playoffs. They missed the playoffs by one spot or whatever. But ever since that, and this was like 19 years ago,
Right.
he has made the playoffs every year since.
Well, just the short period that I've known him, a couple of years, it's just impressive, his record.
And then because Hallsville was he was there for his first 11 years, and I think it
So
was
I didn't know he coached for 11 years at Hallsville.
yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
As a matter of fact, he coached both his daughters played for him,
Yeah, I remember him telling me that, yeah.
and I cannot remember the exact year, but he did take Hallsville to the Final Four, and the Final Four is in Austin, Texas, where they have the Final Four playing there or whatever. And he won the Region 2 and took him to the.
And of course, we know here in Texas, any type of this type of sport is so competitive. Especially high school, and whether it's football, whether it's softball, whether it's baseball. It's hugely competitive in Texas.
But it's also East Texas teams do not normally make
Okay.
to the Final Four.
Gotcha.
It's like somebody from Dallas will take over or whatever, stuff like that. So,
More money.
So then, he was there. He was in the playoffs. They won. I think he's won district almost ever since then. I think they've won district every time except once or whatever. And then eventually, his dream job was always being at Forney.
What was that about, though? What drove him to be at Forney?
Because he grew up in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And Forney was very close. It's very close to Dallas.
Right.
You're there in 20 minutes or whatever. But you still got the small class kind of town or whatever.
Well, and that city is just booming.
And plus, they always had great teams. And actually, there was one year in the playoffs in the early rounds where I can remember Forney and Hallsville played, and they were ranked 3 and 4 in the state.
Cool.
So Forney had always had a competitive softball team. Well, about 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, my brother was ready to leave Hallsville, and the Forney job opened up.
Wow.
and he interviewed it. And matter
So
of
the
fact,
stars were aligned again.
yep. And then he also interviewed at Prosper and got offered the Prosper, but held off because he thought he was going to get the Forney job.
Well, and I mean, are we talking about the multi-million-dollar Prosper High School?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, for him to make that decision was a big one because obviously you're walking into an incredible stadium, incredible funds, all that up in Prosper.
True, but it was his dream job.
Yeah.
And plus, at that time, when you got a big growing school or whatever, got big expectations, who knows or whatever. So his first year coaching, and matter of fact, his wife is his assistant coach.
Well, that's kind of like an interesting story in itself as well because, you know, they're all into the sports. They're all into some coaching, you know, and education in some form. But she's also got a new position this year too.
Yeah. But so where I kind of got involved in when they decided they were going to move to Forney, they were going to have a house built. Mm-hmm. And so then the house wasn't going to be ready for a good while. And so they actually lived at my house.
That's
for about
when all the
9
bonding
months.
really happened.
That did. And so then it's like their first season, it was just like, all right, after the games, hearing all the talk after. I enjoyed that after being in my house and all that stuff is because I live alone, but then having a house full or whatever, it was just awesome talking about all this. Well, his first year, they won district. They made it all the way to the regional finals. One short of the Final Four.
First year.
Straight
out the bat.
Straight. And they almost made it, except there was a tragedy that year. That's the year when during the playoffs, one of the girls actually, that softball players got run over. They had a team dinner, got run over by another player, then ultimately died.
My gosh.
And so it was devastating or whatever. And then it's just like, should the girls play or not or whatever? And they were playing. So it was actually,
but
what started was play for him.
We still memorialize her every year, though.
And so, I mean, all the girls were doing everything they could. They ended up winning that round. They won the next round. And then in the regional finals, as the best 2 out of 3, they won the first game. And then they lost the second one. And then just fell apart on the third game or whatever.
Well, a lot of pressure, you know, emotionally what they were going through. So there's no doubt.
Well, so then the next year, it was play for him. That was the status or whatever. They ended up making it all the way, won the regionals, and went to the state and won state.
That's incredible.
And it was actually the first state title for the whole school of Forney in any sport.
Yeah,
they have never won a title in any sport except now they've got a softball title, and it was played for him, and it was just a magical season.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you look at
especially coming off the tragedy.
Yes, and so they ended up they won it, and then actually Emily, who's the one that passed away, she had a twin sister that played on the team.
Oh my gosh.
And then after they won the title, when the next day when they were back in Forney, they went to Emily's grave, the whole team or whatever, and put a trophy up there.
What a great tribute to her.
Yeah. Next year they made it to the state tournament again, did not make it, and then the following year they were ranked number 1 in the state, and then COVID hit.
Oh yeah, that changed everything.
Yeah. So all in all, you look at this, it's like for somebody that started coaching late out of life, and now he's been there he's done softball for 19 years. Yeah. He's got a state title. He also got the AP Coach of the Year that year.
Yeah.
And they're going strong and everything else is, and doing what he loves.
Well, that's the other thing about it is he's so passionate about it. You know, obviously he gets upset sometimes when the girls aren't playing properly. And he gets like, well, you know, I'm going to really give it to him afterwards. But I mean, he's so passionate about what he does. But I also see the other side where he's given that fatherly like advice to them during the entire process. I mean, I'm impressed with, you know, obviously his record, but I'm also impressed on how he humanizes it.
Well, his record is 521 wins, 127 losses, and 11 ties.
You can't complain about that record.
No.
I think most coaches out there would love to have that record.
No, they would. I mean, and it's just, he can do whatever he wants. I mean, when my dad was alive and all my stuff, he kept telling Pat, with your coaching record, you could go anywhere and do anything you wanted or whatever.
I think he could too as well, but I mean, obviously, it's whether or not he wants to.
Right.
So it comes down to them. Well, there's no doubt that, we can definitely praise Pat. I mean, he's a great guy. I mean, I love spending time with him. And I'm glad you spent this opportunity to kind of like recognize, his not only his record, but him as your brother, because that's hugely important.
But you also got to give kudos to his wife, Michelle.
Well, that's a whole another show.
But basically, she's been the best assistant that he's ever had. And you would think that they would conflict, but they don't.
I think I'd one-up you on that one. She's been the best partner he's ever had.
Well, that's true, too.
I
would say assistant, too.
In all aspects of life, whether it be professional or personal. So, well, I mean, great to hear about Pat and all his successes. But I know you have a little bit of a controversy you want to talk about as well.
Well, I definitely. For people that don't know, I have season tickets for the Dallas Mavs and the Dallas Stars. So I've had this for 21 years or whatever. So I
thought it was 23.
21, 22. I don't know. You lose track, whatever. But so I go to a lot of games. And just this past week, there's now a controversy bubbling up into the NBA, because ultimately, when they decided their new arrangement, the players and the owners, there was this rule called whatever the rule is. This Rule 65, where to win any of the awards, like most valuable player, defensive player, all this other stuff is
over the entire season.
Over the entire season, with the end of the years when you do all that stuff is you have to play 65 games, which means
I hope you don't get hurt.
Which means you can only miss 17 games.
What prompted this rule?
Well, what prompted the rule is because ultimately now with the players having all their big money and all that stuff is. They basically sometimes get tired and say, I don't want to play a game.
Yeah, but they've always had that money for decades now.
No, but the players now are different than what the players were back in the older days or whatever. They played all the games.
But if I was Jason Kidd and I'm sitting here coaching this team, and I see one of my players who's a star player and he's getting fatigued or something along those lines, I may want to bring him out for a game or two.
A game or two is fine.
But over a season, to make sure that their strength is still there, come on.
But it's just like, but you have a lot of fans that have paid good money to see these good games.
So what's the take from the fans? I hear what you're going on your side.
I'm telling you right now, I've been to several games so far this season where several of the stars have been out, and it might be injury.
And you just missed that word.
No, I know, but
injured.
they could be injured. But I can just tell you, they play totally different, and I see a bunch of losses now. Now, granted, I get it if you're injured or whatever, but there's a lot of players. It's just, I'm tired. I hurt my ankle.
Well, I will say this about not necessarily this season, because obviously I've seen a significant difference in one particular player that I won't mention, but last season it was like a big old baby, and a huge improvement this year in regards to not just being a team player, but basically showing a complete support.
So now you got players that are these good players that are now looking at that they can they've already missed 12 games, so they can only miss like 5 more the rest of the season. They're saying, no, this is a bad rule. This is a bad rule. And then you have some of these older players. It's like they said they're just being crybabies. It's just play.
I guess if you say how it's going to impact their monetary gain, maybe that's the case, or just overall recognition. I'm not sure exactly why they'd be pushing back on it, especially if they already have the big money.
Well, but then also there's more incentives. If you're like MVP and you win these awards, you get more money as a player.
So it's a monetary thing, is what you're saying. Okay, I get that. I know you get more, sponsorships and commercial deals and things of that sort as well. That's not necessarily related to playing the game and more money.
But the key is ultimately everybody's paying a lot of money to come to these games, and I get it if a player's hurt and all that other stuff is. But basically, the system was being abused, and you had players that would just I don't want to play today or whatever, and all this other stuff is, and it's just like.
But when you look at the roster, a lot of them have that core roster that really are always played. They're starting and all that, and they're actually on the court for the most of the game. Everybody else, I mean, if they're sitting on the bench, are they still classified as part of the game? Okay.
Yeah, no, anybody that's on the bench is there.
As long as they're actually classified to play for the day.
Yes.
And not, injured or something along those lines. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody who's actually, lower down on the actual roster is able to get the MVP, but at least I know that they're not being zinged for it because obviously the big players are out there.
I mean, when you had Michael Jordan playing, it's like he played almost 82 games a season. He might, if not, he was in the upper 70s.
But let's be honest, that's a different work ethic than a different time. There's no doubt that entire kind of like star.
So are you saying
players.
where everybody's getting more entitled later in life?
Absolutely.
Now?
I definitely think that's the case.
Well, I agree with it.
I don't think it's just, I think it's a generational thing, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, it's clear that, you see a generation of basketball players that are changing, and I think they are getting entitled because, I mean, they like all the money and the recognition and all that stuff. But I mean, it's one here, one there. It just depends on how you feel.
I get it, but
I'm not either way. I mean, obviously, I love to watch the games, but I'm not either way on that.
But it's just like going to the Mavs games when I don't see the stars in it. I mean, it basically affects the atmosphere in the stadium or whatever. But it's like I'm still paying the same amount whether they're there or not. So it's like they should be there.
Yeah, I mean, the last game that we were at a couple of days ago was, I mean, it was a nail biter to the end.
Yes,
it really was. I mean, and we really at the first quarter we just pulled it out like crazy. I mean, it was just Luka World was on. There is no doubt about it. And then of course it crashed at the third quarter. But I mean, it was good to watch. It was entertaining. Mm-hmm. There is no doubt about it. That's for sure. So, well, we'll see how that actually continues to pan out. Is it something that it's actually solidified in the rules?
No, it is. It was agreed upon on their last agreement or whatever between the players and the owners. So that's what the rules are, and that's what's going to happen. And that's why you're getting a lot of crybaby here and now. And it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't feel for you.
Let's see if everybody gets as injured as they are or have in the past when they're pretending. I just want to rest, or just like I'm done for the day.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see.
But now you got players that are looking at it. How many games have I already missed? And I could only miss this amount of money.
It's not grandfathered in. It's like even though we're already into the season.
No, it was started at the beginning of the season.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, this is the first year that this has come in place because they did their new agreement at the end of last year.
But there has to be some sort of exception specifically to injuries, isn't there?
No, I don't think so.
I'd be interested.
I'd
be interested to see that because that is not something that the players are, especially if the team doctor and the physicians have all said that that's a legitimate injury.
But
that's not.
And I'm not
control.
sure on that but my thing is like you have to play if you want one of these major awards or whatever. You have to play 65 games.
I mean, I've been looking at somebody who was actually seriously injured and was out maybe for a couple of weeks, which actually was that 17 games plus. But then comes back.
If you're out 2 weeks,
well, whatever the time period is. Let's say they get out more than 17 games and they come back and they just kick ass. I mean, and literally they should be the MVP, but just there's 1 or 2 games that you did not qualify for, so you're not. I don't know. I mean, it just seems very interesting how that's going to play out.
You could talk about that but I look at this as you got players that are just kind of lily-dallying with this, and it's just like. Play. If you're injured, I get that. And if you missed it because of injuries, I feel bad for you.
Well, let's see if the landscape changes on who actually gets MVP then.
It will.
It'll be interesting to see that. Well, but let's kind of change up the little path here and go a little bit more not necessarily sports related, but definitely something, you might say that there's a lot of competitive sports that does actually happen. Obviously we just had the Grammys this last weekend, which I don't know if I know you didn't watch it because you had to catch up on your RuPaul.
I did.
Obviously I did watch it. And
I kind of switched back and forth, but did not watch that much. But I heard it was really good.
It was because, from our generation, we actually saw some of the actual stars being recognized, not just in their skills and their history and all that, but actually on the stage. I mean, Tracy Chapman, Billy Joel, U2, recognizing Tina Turner, Tony Bennett, all these individuals that have really kind of paved the path for so many of these stars. Mm-hmm. They really were being recognized. I have to say that in all the years that I've watched the Grammys, this is probably one of the better ones. simply because it wasn't, peppered with just pop or hip hop or kind of all these crazy, antics that some of the actual musical stars get up to. But there are a couple of outtakes that I really kind of loved. I mean, obviously, Luke Combs and Tracy Chapman. I mean, it was kind of, I'm sitting there watching. Of course, he went through this kind of bio of why he loved that song. And it's something he loved as a kid, and I kept thinking to myself, is she going to be on stage? I mean, is this the direction we're going in? And this is a woman who walked away from the entertainment field in like 2008, 2009 after like 8 or 9 records and has been really just under the radar, and just to see them both up there singing this song, which obviously was ultimately her favorite, most famous song out there. You see it on TikTok, you see it on all the social medias, Instagram, things of that sort. I mean, people of our generation were brought to tears because of it, because there was something significant about that 1988 song, number one. But number two, what I'm impressed with is that this generation is getting to experience it in a different way, with Luke Combs coming out there and singing it and actually winning it last year at the Country Music Awards. I mean, I just think it's fantastic. So the one thing that I also thought was kind of, two things that she did. Was Miley Cyrus. I mean, you have to love and hate her in the same whole thing, because that girl is who she is, and she's not going to apologize.
And she did win an award, didn't she?
She won 2.
2?
She won 2. The interesting thing about this is, as long as she's been in the industry, this was her first Grammy ever. And let me tell you, she was giddy as hell.
I think I heard that it was her first.
Yeah, she was giddy as hell. And let me tell you, she deserved every bit of it. And a lot of people are kind of like, well, wow, she's being a little bit silly. Who gives a damn?
I mean, didn't she make the comment? Like I said, I was flipping back and forth. I think I might have saw this when she was doing her award, when she was getting ready to leave. She said, "I'm wearing no underwear."
She indicated that she may have forgotten her underwear. Again, she's always a controversy. She likes to kind of stir it up as well, as you indicate to me. So, I mean, I got to give it to her.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, she's an incredible voice. I mean, there is no doubt about it. Incredible voice. There was a little bit of a controversy about her, and I don't know if a lot of people recognize that, and, when she got the second award and she got up there and she thanked people, there's one person she didn't thank.
Who?
Her father. Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yes. Achy breaky.
Yeah. Apparently they are estranged.
Wow.
And, and they were super close.
They were, because they were on what? Was it Hannah Montana?
Hannah Montana, yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently, was dating somebody who was younger than her and has married her and has kind of like significantly changed. So she obviously recognizes her mother and her sisters and things of that sort. But I didn't know the estrangement was there. Until I actually got on there and Googled it, because I said, wait a minute, she didn't mention Billy Ray. What the hell's up with that? I thought they were pretty close. I just thought that was interesting. But I will say this, the one that I really want to talk about, I was impressed with
Let me guess.
well, not just that one, but
Oh, you got another one?
Well, it's kind of like I'm on the fence specifically on this one. And that was Fantasia's kind of like, Proud Mary, specifically on Tina Turner's.
And I did not see that.
Memorial. Obviously, Tina Turner's CD was the very first one I ever bought in my entire life. So, I mean, she was something that I just like loved to death in 1984.
And I've only done drag one time.
And it was Tina Turner. Yeah.
And I did that at a work function.
Yeah, that sounds kind of interesting.
I know.
That's probably
that's another story.
Definitely another story. There's no doubt about it. The thing about Fantasia, she was obviously on American Idol. She didn't win the American Idol, but
no, Fantasia won.
Did she win?
She won.
Well, there's been some controversies over the time period since she won. Obviously she's said some derogatory remarks about the LGBTQ community. And supposedly she was almost homeless and living in her car. And I really do think that, from the perspective of what Oprah has done from her with the Color Purple musical, has brought her back into it. Now she's a phenomenal singer. There's no doubt about it.
Totally.
And I'm still kind of on the fence whether or not I thought that she did Tina Turner justice, just because one thing that I always have a problem specifically with somebody who's memorializing somebody, especially if I really care about that individual, is they try to mimic them. And, I get that you want to try to reach that level of their voice, But, you don't need to try to do their facial expressions or shake your ass like she did. I mean, because let me just tell you something. Nobody could actually move like Tina Turner. Not at all. So, I mean, it was a very robust and, excitable presentation and memorial like that. I just don't think it's what everybody's saying is the best out there. Now, that may be controversial. So be it. But that is my own personal opinion because it's unfiltered.
But what just popped in my head? We talked about Tina Turner and people acting and trying to be Tina Turner. It just popped in my head. Did you ever see the movie Miss Congeniality 2?
I'm pretty sure I did.
It had Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
And I can't remember her partner or whatever. But there was a thing where they were in a drag show and they were doing a Tina. All that stuff is, you had a bunch of people did the Tinas. And that just popped in my head. So,
well, I mean, she's always been impersonated, but it's one thing to be impersonated, whether it be a drag queen who does it or somebody like yourself who did it as a work event. But when you're memorializing her on an international stage of the Grammys, and you're trying to mimic certain aspects of her body language and all that, I just didn't think Fantasia should have been herself. And memorialize her from that perspective. That's all I'm saying there.
Okay.
Yeah. But the other one that I really want to talk about, because obviously it goes hand in hand to NFL.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this one.
It's Taylor Swift. As you know, I mean, I'm not a Swiftie. I keep saying this because I'm not.
I'm not. I'm definitely not.
Yeah.
But it's like more power to her.
But
whatever.
I continue to have admiration grow for her every single week, especially as this controversy continues to grow.
I've been to her show. It's really good.
Well, I hear she's a phenomenal entertainer.
Yeah, it's really good. I went to the...
I would love to see it. I can't afford to pay for it, but I would love to see it just simply because I want to see her entertainment.
Well, because she came to Jerry World here.
Yeah.
So not this tour, but the previous one I saw at Jerry World. It was pretty cool.
And that was pretty cool, but apparently Arrows is even better.
Yeah.
Which is, 3 hours straight that she's up there performing. And multiple costume changes. I mean, even dive into what appears to be all pool water and things of that sort. I mean, there's no doubt she's an incredible performer.
No, I give her that. It's not my thing.
Well, that's okay. I mean, yes, she's on my playlist for a couple of those songs. I mean, some of the ones that are more kind of like catchy that which is I guess common for somebody at my age. But obviously she walks into this already. The Grammys with a controversy simply because of her boyfriend.
Oh, my God.
Now, obviously, Travis wasn't there because...
He wasn't there because if he was there, there would have been a controversy about him not taking the Super Bowl.
Correct. But she was also, which most of the individuals who are of her level of A-star listers, late. So Noah, Trevor had already began his kind of like opening monologue and all that, and I kept saying, it's like, when is he going to mention Taylor? Because he went through the entire room and so mentioned everybody, and then all of a sudden, literally as he was mentioning her, she's being escorted in. I mean, literally almost 5 minutes into his monologue. I'm sure it was pretty much
it was probably
programmed.
planned.
It was programmed and all that, and it was really cool. The thing about Taylor specifically, during programs like this, and I've seen it in all musical programs that award shows that she's always up there rooting for everybody, dancing for them. I mean, there could be the entire audience sitting down and she'll be the only one up there dancing with the singing and lip syncing the words and all that, and she pretty much did that the entire show. And I'm pretty sure if the other stuff that came out today politically, that she would be at the top of the list. On just basically the right's heads imploding specifically because she broke a record.
4, right?
Yeah. I mean, she is the only artist in history who has actually won Album of the Year 4 times. Now, I mean, let's talk about the roster of those who are behind her, meaning individuals who were tied for that record of 3 with her, and that included Frank Sinatra, Stevie Wonder, and Paul Simon. And now she has surpassed them in that many awards. And a lot of people are saying already that it was fixed, just like the NFL's, Super Bowl is fixed because of who she is, and it's a psyop operation with the Pentagon and, Biden and all that. I think she deserved it, though. I think she deserved it.
I won't say it's fixed, but I will just tell you it's because of I believe it's probably because of the talent.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, she's a great talent, don't get me wrong, or whatever. But back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, there was a bit great talent.
Well, the problem
There is not as much talent now that there was back then.
Well, there's obviously a lot of technology that improves their talent. There's no doubt about it. But what I will say, also, the technology allowing us to have real-time experiences with these performers is what probably creates that kind of like instantaneously, they're fantastic.
Because back in the heydays, or my heydays or whatever, there were so many artists and all that stuff. Is you just go, oh my God. Nowadays, now granted, I'm older and I'm not paying attention, but you don't have the people that have the staying power like they did before or whatever.
No, there's no doubt, no doubt.
So to me it's like if you're really, really, really good, it's easier now to win more awards than you did back then.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, I mean, I just thought it was great. I mean, I'm proud that she won that. She's obviously over in Japan right now doing a set of 4 shows back to back.
But I bet I
I don't know how she's going to get to the Super Bowl.
No, I bet she will be there next Sunday.
It's
Yeah,
kind of
but that's not the problem. There's no parking.
there's no parking for planes, but apparently there is something that they've got to set up specifically for her. The interesting thing about it is this isn't just a NFL Taylor Swift U.S. thing. The embassy of Japan came out and said she actually, based upon when her last concert is and she can get in the plane, it's 17 hours difference or 14 hours different, whatever it is, 14 hours flight, or she can get there in time. So even the embassy of Japan is getting involved simply because, it's a great thing to be involved in. And there's one last thing I want to say before we kind of wrap this particular episode of it.
But then I have one question before you wrap it up.
Okay. The commissioner came out the last couple of days of the NFL, and he basically blew this whole bullshit conspiracy out of the water and saying there's not. I mean, you've got to give credit to the teams because they obviously played their best. And, if they're in the Super Bowl, they won their playoffs, they're deserving of that. And it has absolutely nothing to do with Taylor Swift. Now, do I think that NFL are playing off that whole kind of thing? Absolutely.
They want it because it's going to get more fans, more ratings, everything else.
It's going to get a demographic they probably haven't seen before.
I know.
Because typically, most of the demographic they're looking at is, middle-aged, older men. So,
But my question to the group here is, how many times do you think we're going to see Taylor on screen or during the Super Bowl?
That's an interesting question. And I really can't, gauge what it is simply because it's going to be the network who kind of controls that.
Well, it does, but I'm just asking because ultimately my thing is as long as Kansas City is doing well and they win it, we're going to see here at least 5 or 6 times.
I think that even if they're not doing well, you're going to see it because they're all about facial expressions.
Yeah, but it's just like
it's being controlled again, not by the NFL, but by the network.
No, I know, but
they're all about selling damn games and commercials.
But it's like they're gonna be wanting to sell excitement and all that stuff and they're not gonna want to do that or whatever. But if the Kansas City wins and they're doing well, you're gonna see her like 6 or 7 times on the screen.
Well, there's no
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Honestly, I'm the general population where, man, this is a show. I'm excited to see all of it.
And you're going to be in Vegas.
I'm going to be in Vegas.
But not going to be at the game.
Nope,
but you're going to be there
across the street.
Yeah, you'll be actually wrapping up here and then heading out at 7 a.m. this next morning.
Yep. God willing, I don't miss my flight.
Yeah, it depends on how much you have tonight in cocktails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's only on his first.
I'm on my first.
Well, naturally, we have a ton of stuff others that we could be talking about, and we will.
Of course.
On our next episode, because there was so much that actually came out today, which everybody, just so you know, it's Tuesday, February 6th. But, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I definitely want to thank everybody for listening to us today on Buddies, Booze, Banter's Unfiltered Conversations. I am Rick.
I'm Michael.
I'm Alex.
And we will see you next time.
All right.
Buddies. Banter.
Rules. So you did